We'll get started here. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone that's joined us today. This session is being recorded, so if you're unwilling or unable to be part of the recording, you may drop off. We are planning to go for about 30 to 40 minutes today. My name is Ismail Nalwala, and I'm the CEO of IOTAP. Based out of the DC metro area, my company, IOTAP, is a Microsoft Cloud Solutions partner, and Work365 is the application that we've developed on Dynamics CRM for cloud services companies like us. And today we're going to talk about how to use Work365 for Azure subscriptions. All right, moving on. So a quick look at the agenda today. Azure is obviously a very important topic for Microsoft and all of us partners. We launched Work365 earlier this year in March, and we've been working with both direct and indirect partners who are looking for a way to manage and scale their business. I can see from the registrations and the audience for this session that we have a mix of existing users and some of you that are brand new to Work365. So today's session is about really how to use Work365 for Azure billing. We will go through some opportunities and challenges with Azure and how our solution can help. We'll walk through the setup of Azure subscriptions, how to manage the dates, the billing considerations, and best practices from a billing and subscription standpoint. I'll do some polls through the presentation, so I request your participation. This gives us the feedback that we're looking for to improve really what we're doing. All right, so for the benefit of the new partners on this call, I'll just recap that Work365 is a customer experience application for partners to run a successful CSP practice. It is built entirely on Dynamics 365 sales and customer service applications and includes 4 major solution components: subscription management and invoicing, where you can create custom products and services. You provide flexible terms like monthly, annual, and quarterly billing to your customers. You can track provisioning from any provider, including yourself, generate invoices on a consistent and timely basis every single day in an automated way. Then there's the self-service piece. This is built using CRM portals where your customers can manage their own subscriptions and can request changes. These changes then automatically flow back into your Work365 application and CRM system and get recorded as changes. We have the customer service component where we have email to case automation, where you can automatically assign cases, route them to the right text, track full email conversations against any case, and have history in CRM using these capabilities. Then we also have the e-commerce and payments application. Our e-commerce platform integrates into Dynamics CRM, further extending what a customer can do by not only managing what they currently have, but also shop around and purchase new services. We're going to continue our focus today on this session on the subscription management and invoicing capabilities of Work365, with an emphasis today on Azure or usage-based subscriptions. All right, I'm going to launch a quick poll here. If you don't mind just taking a few seconds and please answering this question, that'd be very helpful. We'll give it 30 seconds. I have almost everybody voted, 70% at this point. All right, I'm going to go with the 80-20 rule. 80% of the people have voted. I will share this poll. It looks like most of us, 80% of us almost, are selling Azure, which is fantastic. All right, great. We'll get back to our presentation here. Okay, moving on. So that's great. So most of us here on the call are aware of some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about, because obviously Azure is important. Cloud services like Azure provide a tremendous market opportunity from a growth standpoint. There are all kinds of numbers thrown around out there, but it's the kind of service and opportunity that will double in consumption potentially in the next couple of years. And I can see from the overwhelming response we received for the interest actually in this webinar as well that all of us are paying attention to this opportunity. This last line in here around focus is very interesting. Business decision makers are looking at Azure and cloud computing to not just maintain the status quo and reduce costs, but actually to innovate, really, which is where the opportunity is. So the opportunity is very large. And what are some of the things that the opportunity includes? Now, this is just a small list that we came up with, but the opportunities are unlimited. Azure provides a scalable platform and infrastructure to build anything. And some of the other benefits of selling Azure is that it is extremely sticky. Unlike license-based services, it's hard to move between one CSP provider to another. There's almost always a cost, whether direct or indirect, in terms of effort associated with the migration. You can get started pretty quickly. I can create a subscription and provision services, deploy what I need to, even down the road. It is a significant contributor to the monthly recurring revenue metrics that we're all trying to track. And of course, there are tons of opportunities to package and deliver all kinds of services. So for a typical Azure subscription, I tried to list out what I consider the most important stages or phases. So we see Azure sort of in these 5 buckets. You have a subscription, you go through a deployment process, you have cost management optimization that takes place when the service is running. Then you actually maintain the service, make sure there's no support issues, and keep everything up and running. And then eventually you have to do the billing, right? So Work 365 actually supports these 2 specific phases of the Azure lifecycle. So we enable the subscription setup and the billing as of today. These intermediate steps are usually done through other applications for MSPs, and we will potentially integrate with that, but right now Work 365 doesn't manage the subscription for you. It enables the setup and provides the billing. Now, in the future, we will potentially automate the deployment through templates, but the other intermediate service items will still be managed by other tools for MSPs. Just like to do another quick poll. I'll give it another 20 seconds. I have about 60% of the people that have voted. Right now it's 70. All right, great. I will close the poll out. We're at about 75%. Thank you very much. It looks like we have about a little more than half the partners here that are working direct with Microsoft, which is great because you'll see some of the benefits, and others who are working with indirect partners as well. We'll talk a little bit about how Work 365 supports the Azure scenarios there. All right. So with Azure, because the subscription and service is consumption or usage based, by definition, we don't know what the invoice or bill will look like for customer usage until we have the usage data. Pricing is tiered, so unlike a license-based subscription, pricing for Azure services is tiered. So just because you know the usage for the first few days in the month, the final invoice could still look very different. Azure has pricing and cost estimation tools out there, but what we get billed for as a partner actually needs to be marked up in order to price it for our customers. We have a margin that we can apply, and there are back-end rebates as well. And finally, the invoice we receive is not easy to turn into an invoice for customers. You will most likely receive one big bill with all the different subscriptions, and then we have to sort out these subscriptions for each of the customers, apply the agreed upon markups and discounts, and all this takes a whole lot of time for finance, sales, and service teams. So these are some of the billing challenges we're trying to sort out and service with Work 365. Now, I'd like to walk through a scenario here to show you how we could use Work 365 for Azure. In this scenario, let's assume a customer has a billing relationship that started with us on the 20th of February. You agreed to give the customer a 5% discount when the customer signed up for Office 365. And then a couple of days later, the customer placed a new order and wants the same discount to apply to their Azure subscription. This order is for Azure usage-based subscription to the existing billing contract, right? And you want to include both Azure and Office 365 on one combined invoice. So let's assume for this scenario that this is for a direct partner that's provisioning through the partner center. I will also point out some differences between the direct and indirect scenarios and how you set this up and what it actually looks like in Work 365. So because this scenario involves skipping around in time, I have screenshots here that will show you the most relevant things to keep in mind. So we don't have to wait for all the elapsed time and track usage. Otherwise, this webinar could go on for months to show you the real usage. So what you see here is our Work 365 application that is installed in Dynamics 365. I open my Work 365 application and navigate to my billing contracts. I can see a list of all my billing contracts in my system here. I find the billing contract that I want to work with. I'm now reviewing the billing contract, and I can see that they already have existing subscriptions, and I want to add a new subscription. I open up the subscription form. Notice this says usage-based subscription. I will complete the subscription form, and notice the default markup is automatically available on the subscription. I have selected the right form type, specified the name of the subscription, selected the provider, which is the Microsoft Partner Center for direct providers. For indirect partners, I would select my distributor as a provider. And for providers or distributors where we have integration, this subscription will be automatically provisioned. For Azure, we don't provision all the detailed services through Work 365. We only need to set up the subscription, which is the container for all the billing and service items that will capture the usage for the invoicing process. All right, I go back to my billing contract and see that all the subscriptions are created, including my Azure subscription. Now, as time goes by, consumption of services is taking place, and invoices and usage data is being generated on a monthly basis. This is an actual usage file from our partner center. All of us have seen something like this, and this is what really gives us headaches, and all kinds of other ailments as you attempt to scale. I've modified the customer names here, but as you can see, there's daily usage below, so the daily usage appears below the summary usage in the same output file. If you had one customer and one subscription, this would not be difficult. You would just be able to summarize all this, mark up the totals, and create an invoice. However, that is not the reality for all of us. This file contains data for multiple customers and multiple subscriptions. We need to figure out how to apply the invoicing boundaries around all our billing dates, and then make sure that the discounts and markups, etc., are all correctly applied for each of the customers. All right. So in our real life scenarios, we will have multiple Azure customers, many Azure customers, hopefully. You will have many Azure subscriptions, each of them potentially with a different billing start date. Customers may have a combination of consumption-based services or fixed price services. Some customers will receive a discount. Some customers may receive a higher markup. So if you get my drift, this becomes very complicated. Billing for this scenario is not easy, especially if that Excel sheet is what you get at the end of the month. So what do we do as partners to overcome these scale complexities, right? We put fences around our services and processes. like separating license and consumption-based invoices. We set specific dates for billing, where we will allocate a day or two in the week to reconcile, review, and invoice the customers. We can't offer all the flexibility in terms of discounts and markups. We keep things pretty consistent and standard because we don't want to make mistakes. And then eventually it's really hard to bundle services. So it affects our overall cloud profitability and margin. Now, these are some of the real scale challenges that we're trying to solve with Work 365. Let's look at what happens with that consumption data, that Excel file that we looked at in the previous slide. Now, as time goes by, usage data becomes available, and this gets aggregated into the app's Azure subscriptions as consumption data. Currently, every month as the usage and invoice data becomes available, we are able to pull that data directly into Work 365. It gets sorted by each of the customers and the subscriptions and is available directly under the subscription. I have here a few months of data in the system, and you can see the data both in the usage and in the details section. I think I'll see that here. Actually, let me go back. Now, just another quick mention here. Where we have integration with the providers, the data is automatically pulled in. My current screenshot shows data aggregated at the monthly level. However, in our next release, we will have interim data that will be available even on a daily basis. All right, let me move on. Now, with Work 365, because all the data is pulled in automatically and associated with the right subscription, your invoicing process is automated every month. That entire file is consumed, split up, and each customer's invoice is generated on the billing date. What you're looking at here is a standard invoice entity in CRM. This invoice is created and customer-specific consumption file is also attached and available on the invoice record, as you can see here. What I can do is quickly go through the invoice record and generate the Word template. As you can see, this is customer-ready file with the markup, summarized price, combined with all the other subscriptions in one single invoice. There's also a usage file that you saw in the previous slide that can be attached with this invoice. So really all you're doing is going ahead and printing and generating this file to create this monthly invoice for both subscription, for both usage and license-based subscriptions. So one of the main motivations and benefits for us to build Work 365 was for Azure billing. It would take us days to develop these customer-facing invoices, going through the usage data, and we were having scale issues. And so this is why we call Work 365 a customer experience solution. It allows you to provide flexibility and enables the right customer experience for you to scale that CSP business. Work 365 allows you to handle each of these complexities around scaling customers, even provisioning from different providers, handling specific customer discounts and scenarios, and all your data lives in the system. You can combine billing and invoicing and even view these trends. All right, if you're using a distributor or a provider where we don't have a direct integration, there's a manual step involved. You have to actually import the usage data into the system. And in the upcoming release, you will see an import usage button on the subscription screen, as I've pointed out here. Now, for partners that need to import this usage data, you will be able to select the format from the distributor or the provider. Now, the challenge we have is that providers have different file formats for consumption. And so we would like to partner with you and to have your provider's formats available. So if you're willing to share your consumption files and reports, please reach out to us at readytogo@work365apps.com to discuss this import template. We may be able to develop an automated import process for your situation that could benefit others as well in the long run. So as you can see, we'll have a button here. You can select which provider you're trying to import the file from, and that data will be imported as usage data for billing purposes. All right. Now I'd like to share some details and considerations around dates. Billing is very sensitive to that. And the main point here is that to generate consumption-based invoices, your consumption data must be available. This is obvious, but I'd also like to emphasize this, that in the usage-based billing scenario, there is no other way to generate a customer-facing invoice. So let's walk through all the dates and figure out some options that you would want to consider. So the customer starts their relationship with you on the 20th of February. The first invoice will be generated on the 21st for all the licenses that were provisioned when the service was started. The Azure subscription is then started on the 22nd. In this situation, let's assume that your billing date with your provider is on the 1st. Now, I've talked to a lot of partners. Each of us have different billing dates. We are customers for Microsoft or our distributors, so they basically give us the billing date based on the date that we've enrolled or whatever date they feel comfortable sending us the invoice, right? Your second your consumption at this point will be for the period between the 22nd to the 1st. That's the data that will be available. Your second customer invoice will go out on the 21st of the next month, which is in March. And your first full billing cycle will be from the 20th to this period in March. So, which means that your invoice on this date will include consumption for Azure for the period between the 22nd only till the 1st. Your next provider invoice will be available on the 1st of the next month, and your second consumption period will be for the full period. And then finally, your subsequent invoices will happen on the 21st, which will include the full consumption for the previous period provided to you by your provided in your invoice. So as you can see, that there is potentially a lag scenario where you have some Azure consumption that is residual, which will be caught up in subsequent invoices. So there are two options with setting up Azure subscriptions. You can set up two separate billing contracts, one for license-based subscriptions and the second for usage-based subscriptions. This way the customers will get two separate invoices and you can avoid any residual consumption issues. Or if the terms are different, where Azure is on a monthly basis and the licenses are on an annual basis, again, it makes sense to have two separate billing contracts. And the second option is to include both of them in the same monthly billing contract. In this case, you will have some residual billing that will trail, but it's never lost. It just gets added to the invoice for the following month. So this is essentially very important. I'd like to make sure we kind of understand this. We can set up separate billings or include both subscriptions in the same billing contract. The data is never lost. In one scenario, the data is the invoicing data is added in the following month. In the other scenario, you get two separate bills, including all the consumption data in separate invoices. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how to get started with Work 365. I'd like to talk about our onboarding service for all those that are not in a trial and looking to get started. Through this onboarding process, we will work with you through each of these stages. We work closely for up to a month to ensure you get past your first monthly billing milestone. There are four kind of important steps or stages with implementing Work 365, as you can see here. The first step obviously is the setup and installation. It takes one meeting to get the system set up and installed. Once you're done with the installation, you can usually start using the application. However, you will want to set up all the historical data and relationships in the system. This system will replace your spreadsheets if you're actually using them right now. The second step is the one that takes a little more time. Since most of us are working with customers in the CSP program, You will have existing relationships like billing contracts and subscriptions that you'll want to set up or import in the system. Once we finish this, the system actually starts to work for you, which is when you get to see the operational and ongoing stages around reporting and reconciliation. I have a link here in the title for you to go out and get started with the onboarding service if you need to do that. So with that, I'd just like to share one more quick poll to get your feedback. I may not share the results of this poll, but it'll be helpful for me and for us in terms of what we're doing. All right, we're almost there. About 60% of the folks have voted. If we could just get a little more time here, I will close this poll out. All right, great. So thank you very much. It looks like we had a mix of people that thought this was very helpful and somewhat helpful. So I'm glad that people didn't think it was a waste of time. I appreciate that. I will close this out and basically want to close out with some final remarks here. All right, so Work 365 is now available on AppSource. This was released last week. Please join our Yammer group on the sites listed up there. The onboarding site is also listed for you to get started with that. And if you'd like to connect with me, please do that on Twitter and LinkedIn. And there's a link for you to schedule a demo as well. We can talk about some of this stuff in more detail. Now, with that, I'd like to just open it up for questions. And if you could use the questions panel to post your questions, we'll get going. It looks like we already have a bunch of them. All right, great. All right, let's see. So will you have a recording of this? Looks like we already got an answer to that. Okay, great. Now the question was, is this solution good only for the Azure billing or with license-based subscriptions as well? This works for Azure as well as license-based subscriptions and also service-based subscriptions. So you can set up a managed service subscription along with a license-based subscription and an Azure consumption-based subscription, all under a same billing contract for your end customers. It's not just for Azure. Next question is, can you set up bill back to departments? Yes. So the response there is yes, but typically you might want to set up a different billing contract or a subscription for each department that you're trying to invoice for. It looks like we have a whole bunch of questions here. Is there a storefront component or how the customers manage their licenses? Yes. There is a storefront component, which is that e-commerce component I talked about. You can also use the self-service, which is a CRM, which is based on the CRM portal. The CRM portals provides purely self-service capabilities where customers can come online and manage their subscriptions. They can't really purchase or shop around or make payments. However, the storefront allows you to do, which is our e-commerce solution, allows you to do everything, which includes shopping, managing subscriptions, and even payments. So next question is it possible to create CRM invoices entity rather than invoice itself? So the reality is that we are using the CRM invoice entity, the standard CRM invoice entity, and the invoice is just an output of that. The invoice document that you see is an output of that invoice record that is created in the system every time the billing process runs. Next question I have is, can final customer access to my white label portal to get further detail on their billing? Yes, The portal is fully white labeled. It can be branded exactly as per your needs, and it supports all the billing scenarios that you might want to enable for your customers. Looks like Yusuf has already answered a lot of these. I'm just going to continue reading the questions down here. What is the name of the e-commerce platform? Or is this more information on Yammer? So yes, I would recommend that you please schedule some time with us so we can talk to you a little bit more about the e-commerce platform if that's what you're interested in. Generally, what we recommend is to get started with the subscription bit and invoicing components in CRM, and then once that's stabilized, we move you into the e-commerce platform. You want to make sure all your data and all your system is running correctly on the CRM side first before you move into the CRM implementation. Sorry, the e-commerce implementation. Is it possible to work with multiple CSP regions? Absolutely. In fact, we have 4 regions where we are direct partners in the US, in the UK, in India, and in the Middle East as well. And our solution is meant and built for multiple regions, multiple partner centers, multiple currencies. Does Work365 bill Azure Stack usage? So I think the answer there is Work365 imports consumption data, and I think Yusuf has already answered this. Any data that is included as part of that usage file will get included in the invoice. Will you cover pricing? I can talk a little bit about pricing, but I prefer that we talk about that on a one-on-one basis. Our pricing is based on billing contracts and not on revenue. So that's what I'd like to share right now. And I'd like to understand your specific scenario. So please write to us at readytogo@work365apps.com, and we can provide some more details. Do you import product catalogs? That's another good question. So because we are set up in Dynamics CRM, we don't do an automatic product catalog import. Your product catalog in Dynamics CRM is maintained by you, and we enable that for you. We show you how to integrate that with the subscriptions, but we don't touch that product catalog on an automatic basis. We've gone through many rounds of this discussion, and most partners don't want to have their product catalog and their CRM system mucked around with through automatic updates. So we don't do that. We can certainly provide you ways for you to keep it up to date, and generally product catalogs shouldn't be mucked around with on a regular basis. Yes. Does your solution provide customer self-service? Yes, as we talked about, it does. It has both self-service and e-commerce. I think we're getting through the last few questions. We're an MSP. We apply our rate card to the different Azure resources. Does Work365 also include the billing of the managed services associated with the different Azure resources in a subscription, provided we give access to our rate card? So yes, this scenario is certainly possible. I'd like to understand a little bit more in terms of how you're planning to use the application, and we can help you with that sort of on a one-on-one call. So another question, what is the cost of using this solution for us as a partner? So as you know, Dynamics CRM is available to most partners if you have any competency, silver or gold, as internal use rights. So because you have Dynamics CRM, we believe it's a great place for you to manage all your customer data, including things like subscription management, provisioning data, and invoicing. Now, our solution is built on Dynamics, and our pricing can be shared with you directly. Dynamics CRM, along with Azure, are some of the 2 main thrusts from Microsoft, and it's going to be important. And I think a lot of partners are looking at Dynamics CRM to not just reduce their cost by using the IURs, but also embrace, learn, and be able to sell it down the road. So we believe this is the right investment for partners who are looking to expand their service portfolio to include Dynamics CRM and be that customer zero within your organization to be able to learn it, use it, and sell it. So it looks like that's all the questions I have. I wanted to keep this to about 30 minutes. Looks like we've gone over by 5 or 6 minutes. I really appreciate everybody's time. I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll talk to you soon. Please reach out to us at readytogo@work365apps.com.